What comes to mind when you hear the word witch? A pointy hat? A cackling hag around cauldron? Or satanic figure dancing around bonfire? Movies and book did quite a lot of damage to a public image of witch. But let's talk about it a little bit more. Let's figure out what's the difference between the fact and the fiction. As somebody who is into witchcraft for quite a long time, I obviously am not completely unbiased talking about the misconceptions of witchcraft. But what I can't say, I did experience quite a lot of them throughout the years and can testify to how ridiculous some of them are from a first person's perspective. One of the first and most common ones, I would say, is that witchcraft is somewhat scary, that it's more about individual power. Like the witch is somebody who is trying to manipulate others or trying to do the spells to gain some form of a benefit for herself or for himself. But I would say that's quite detached from the actual historical background of what witchcraft was. If you look at the tradition of witchcraft going all the way from to proto-shamanic cultures, we are talking about going 10,000 years back. Witchcraft, ever since from that point, was always more of a community service. The shaman or the witch, or how we want to call this role, was somebody who was simple the bridge between the community and the unseen world. And the witch was the somebody who was that very important bridge who brought the information from the community to the divine. He was the mediator of these messages. And at the same time, he brought the messages from the divine to the community. So in its origins, witch is actually not somebody who is trying to gain individual power. On the contrary, it's actually somebody who is helping their community to understand the things that are around them that are unseen, the connection between unseen world to help them survive and help them thrive. So obviously, I would say there always can be people who are misusing the ability or the knowledge of the unseen world for their own benefit, but follow that logic that because some people are misusing this knowledge, that means the whole field is bad. We would have to completely denounce the whole crypto space. Because speaking about witchcraft, we still have a better success rate when it comes to helping people versus scamming people than a crypto ever had. So from that perspective, yes, witchcraft still more reliable and trustworthy than crypto. But no, let me be serious. Obviously, there will be people who are misusing it because having the ability to basically connect with the unseen world, that does give you a lot of power. And obviously, if there is a lot of power, there will be people misusing it. That's just the natural order of things and always has been. But that doesn't take away, or at least it should not take away from the fact that this role is actually very beneficial and can be super beneficial and helpful for the community. Yes, witchcraft can be a great tool for community, but can be also be tool of selfish empowerment. And in some way it can might feel from a current perspective, it might feel primitive and superstitious. Oh, that they believe that if they do this ritual, they are going to call rain or they are going to protect their cows from being cursed. That might look a little bit funny from us, from our to the modern perspective of technology and AI, all of that stuff. But if you think about it, these rituals, even though it might not stop rain, they've been an act of taking control over your own surroundings. They've been the act of saying, I have the power to change my reality. And even though we might still not use these rituals in the same way, we might not use them to change the weather or trying to protect our cows, then we still can use them as an act of empowerment, as taking charge of your reality. The principle on which the ritual was made did not change. It's still an empowerment ritual, no matter what you're trying to take control over or how you're going to empower yourself. So it's not the selfish taking, not selfish benefit that you would do for yourself. Like, for example, you're making these spells so you can like convince people to give you money. No, it's not that level of empowerment or personal power. No, it's simply understanding that the reality around you is something that you can change, and witchcraft has tools how to do it. Witchcraft can have a tools and provide tools how to change the reality slightly like a 1-2 steps beyond of what you can do physically. Let's say, for example, you want to change your financial situation. So you go and get another job. Well, you just did a good step to take care of your reality and take control over it. There might be something just a little bit more that you need, a little bit more, just a energetical push, just an energetical little push forward. And that's something that the witch and witchcraft can help, because the witchcraft is connected to the unseen world and can help that extra energies to bring into that situation, and might bring you a one little step forward to that promotion that you've been working for already for maybe a year. The misconception about witchcraft that is very popular is that witchcraft is completely unscientific. Like it's just superstitious and it's completely unscientific. That's absolutely not true. Witchcraft as a folk magic witchcraft and the role of a common folk or shaman has a strong and long history of, for example, herbal knowledge. Back in medieval Europe, for example, it was often the role of the blacksmith wife to basically work as some form of a medicine provider who would make different ointments, who would make different teas, and had a knowledge of herbs. For example, St. John's wort is known for being antidepressant. In many cases, a lot of our modern pills are coming originally from the old witchcraft and a healer knowledge of herbs that then basically just been distillized and turned into small pill. But the knowledge is scientific because a lot of the pills are based on these herbs. Also, there is this misconception that doing witchcraft is something inherently bad because, again, you're trying to get that individualistic power over other people, and or you're trying to curse them and try evil. Like the only way what you can do with witchcraft is evil. You have to understand that a lot of it is actually connected with Christianity. You can't have two people in the same space of the mediator between the common man and the divine. So the witchcraft and the paganism and the more nature-based religions kind of got a bad reputation because of that. It was a PR disaster and they just did not have much space to defend themselves. Witchcraft is just pointy hats and curses and evil. That's a real superstition because it's really not like that. It's witchcraft, what it is, if anything else, it's a well of a wisdom of how humans connect with nature, with seen nature and unseen nature, and how we can work together with these forces in a way that's harmonic and sustainable. Another connected superstition is that witchcraft relies on like some supernatural forces that don't exist. Okay, let me ask you this. Have you ever felt uneasy in a place where you didn't know anything about the place and the place wasn't run down or weird? There wasn't any visual clues why you should feel uneasy in that place, and yet you did. You've been picking up on the energies of the place, and your natural intuitive sense were picking up on a sense of danger. Most likely what this place was, it was a place where people could argue. It was a place of some negative human energy, could be even a place of some violent events or violent misfortune. Sometimes old hospitals have that. Sometimes you can have this in prisons or other places when some form of negative energy was accumulated. Almost everybody has this experience. So if everybody on this planet, almost everybody on this planet has this experience, how you can tell these forces don't exist if almost everybody has a tangible proof that they actually did because they felt it themselves? The thing is that some people actually train their psychic senses so they can go beyond just this feeling of uneasiness, and they can collect more information about more things and more people from the same source, like this feeling of uneasiness is coming from. Because it's not just that little feeling that comes from that space, it's a whole plentiful of information you can get from the same place. And that's the development of psychic senses, which again probably exists and many people already have that experience. It's just a lot of people choose either suppress it, or they just choose simply not to develop these senses further. Another misconception I'm hearing about witchcraft is that it's somehow backwards, like it has no place in our modern society. And I would say that's maybe the most damaging misconception about witchcraft and fundamentally not true. And that is witchcraft is not dangerous, but it's somehow irrelevant. Like we don't need to learn these things. It's irrelevant. We are so past it. Yet, if you actually understand witchcraft and you understand that the witchcraft is the mediator between the humanity and the seen and unseen world, what makes you think that the connection is outdated? That we don't need to connect with the natural world around? without consequences. So we don't need to communicate and find a common ground and go with the flow of the unseen forces. What makes you think we can do that without consequences? It doesn't matter how much technologically we are advanced, we are still living in the same world that is still working on the same principle. As below, so above. That's valid no matter the time and no matter the space. That's why we call the universal laws of Hermetism and witchcraft as universal, because they are universally applicable and they are just as much true 1,000 years ago, and they are just as much true now. One of the good examples would be sometimes how people work themselves all the way till burnout is because we do not understand or don't want to understand the cyclical nature of seasons. If we just look at simply the wisdom of these 4 seasons, we can understand why burnout is a problem. Just look at the tree. The tree is only bearing fruits in the summer and in the time of harvest. Throughout the winter, the tree is simply just conserving itself. It sheds all the leaves and it's simply relaxing, pulling all of his strength inside of the roots. And that's why the tree does not burn out, but simply grows year by year, because it understands that it needs to grow and move in cycles. Now, often with people who work for corporate jobs or a lot of the entrepreneurs, we are just trying to have spring and summer constantly. Just grow, grow and harvest, grow, grow and harvest. We are not giving enough time for the autumn, which is the time of reflecting, looking at the past season, see what worked, what didn't, and the time of winter, the time of reflection, hibernation, the time of gathering the strength inside of the roots. If you don't do that, you will burn out. And that's some of the fraction of the knowledge that you can gain from witchcraft, from understanding the connection between the world around us and the seen and unseen forces of nature, because they're influencing us. No matter if we deny it or if not, we can even say we don't care about these forces. We might not believe in them. That doesn't change the fact in any way that we are still being influenced by them every single minute of our life, awake or sleeping. Just because you don't believe doesn't mean you're not affected by it. One of the things I would say that can be a negative influence of, let's say, denying witchcraft or trying to think that we are above connecting with nature and these forces is the very deep and profound sense of disconnect. And I do think myself that a lot of people are experiencing it today. And they sometimes might not be able to pinpoint it out, what's happening, why is it happening, why it's disconnect. But I would say that if you think about it, the more time we spend away from these forces, disconnecting them, denying them, the more disconnect we will eventually feel. The most powerful misconception, as I said before, is that witchcraft is irrelevant. However, in the times of a crisis and times of a big disconnect, people always come back to witchcraft. People always come back to spirituality for the answers that the rational world can never offer to them. I do not think that the scientific world or the skeptical world needs to always be in fight or in opposition to the spiritual world. On the contrary, I do believe they can work together. I actually think that the spirituality is the extension of science, because science can tell you how things work. It can tell you how the atoms move around them in the molecules, how the planets are orbiting in a certain way, how certain elements develop from simple elements to the more complex ones, how the creatures on the planets developed from more rough ones like the dinosaurs to more intrigued and complex ones like mammals. They can understand all of these things happening. They can tell you how they are happening, but they don't know why. And unless you understand why, you will never be able to fully understand what you're looking at. I'm a strong believer of that. So science tell you how things work, but witchcraft and spirituality can tell you why. If you combine these things together, you can understand the divinity and the world around you from a perspective that is whole and amazing and can make you feel connected with the world around like nothing else. And I do believe This understanding can be really transformative for humanity if we just open ourselves to understand that we are not fighting each other. So skeptics and the esoteric spiritual people, we are not fighting each other. We should find a common ground and connect, and from our two different angles, find the truth that's in the middle. And from the evolutionary perspective, I do believe this is going to happen sooner or later. There is no way how this is not going to happen, because it's the natural evolution and progress of things. If I, from my perspective as a witch, observe the natural cycles, this is the only conclusion I'm seeing happening in the future. I guess the only question is if this is going to happen in 5 years, 10 years, 100 years, or 200 years. Also, one of the misconceptions is that witchcraft is a harmful replacement for medical treatments. Witchcraft is not meant to replace medical treatments. Yes, back in the day, in the folk medicine time, when we did not have all of these amazing medical inventions like we have now, the witchcraft was the best that they could have at the time. It was better than nothing. It was still able to help us and cure a lot of stuff to a certain extent. But now we all have these synthesized medical pills and machines. And again, why this has to be going against the witchcraft, I think they can actually work together. For example, after your medical treatment is done, the witchcraft can be something that can really help with restoring you. The medical science can help with restoring your body, but the witchcraft can help to restoring your soul. And anybody who've ever been through more difficult health problems, somebody who went through, let's say, chronic pain or something like a cancer or something that's a very serious illness, after you got healed, that's when the healthcare is done with you. You're healed. Okay, nice. Maybe come for checkup. But that's not it. And you know yourself, you're not done healing. Your soul needs healing after experience like that. And I do believe that's where witchcraft as self-care and witchcraft as a restorative art can come and really help the person to restore their soul, to heal their emotions, and put them together back holistically, not just as somebody who has his body healed, but as somebody who healed as a whole being. The witch has always been a connector between two worlds, between our world and between the world of the natural seen and unseen forces, between accepted wisdom and the deeper truths. And I would say in our fractured worlds, these connections are not just additional luxuries we can simply opt out of. I would say that they are essential guides to navigate the epidemics of emptiness and disconnect that we might be facing right now. Throughout the time when conventional wisdom failed, when established institutions could not provide help, people didn't just give up. They found another way, and another way was called witchcraft. And despite of centuries of misinterpretations, these practices never disappeared. And there is a reason why. Because simply put, they work. Today's witches' renaissance is not about broomsticks or black cats. It's about reclaiming what humans always knew and have always known, but modern society has chosen to forget. But that's why we are here. We are here to remind humanity that the connection is still there and it's waiting for us to come back home to this feeling and to come back home to this connection. This was Astrid, and this is Unseen Light Podcast. Let your unseen light shine, and I'm going to see you in the next episode.